The Top Floor Please podcast, where women in leadership rise together. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, executive coach and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. This is your space to find clarity, grow in confidence, and lead with bold authenticity. Whether you're navigating the boardroom, building your team, or stepping into new territory, you're not alone. Let's talk real challenges, real growth, and real leadership because the top floor isn't just a place, it's a mindset. Alrighty then, let's get started.
All right. Today, I want to talk about the original servant leader. Servant leadership, you've probably heard it before, but that's a phrase that gets used a lot of business today. But long before leadership books were written, including my own, or workshops, kind of like what I do today, or executive coaching programs, long before all of that, there was a leader who demonstrated this servant leadership model in a way that absolutely changed how we understand leadership entirely. Now, he didn't do it through authority and he didn't do it through power. He did it through service, service to others. And the moment that it was revealed happened during what we now remember each year around Easter. Because of that powerful leadership example, um, it didn't even happen in the boardroom, right? It happened when a leader picked up a towel and washed the feet of the people he led. And so today, I want to talk about why that moment still matters for leaders today. Welcome to the Top Floor Please podcast. I'm Melissa McCormick, and I am an executive coach, leadership advisor, and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. Back in the day, I wanted to argue cases in the courtroom. But today I traded that courtroom with the boardroom, and I worked 32 years in corporate America, working my way up and around. And today I own an executive coaching firm where I'm helping leaders um, uh, kind of get out of their own way, make sure that they get out of the weeds so that they can run the business instead of the business running them. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's because as we approach Easter, I want to talk about the original servant leader. Servant leadership is a phrase that we've heard in our leadership circles, right? I've talked about it before. Books have been written about it. Companies build their organizations around it. I just attended a couple months ago. I attended a train the trainer program through Rotary on servant leadership. So it's out there and we've all heard about it. But before all of that there was a leader, and you probably know, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, I'll clarify it for you. I'm talking about Jesus. He demonstrated that completely changed how we understand. So that moment that revealed it happened during this time. So this episode is airing on Easter Monday. Okay. So if you're hearing this, it's Easter Monday. But here, I want to go back to the Gospel of John. So in the Gospel of John, there was a moment, and it's in chapter 13. So if you haven't read John 13, do so. I'm not going to read it to you today, but there was a moment during the Last Supper that really surprised everyone in the room. Jesus stood up from the table. He wrapped a towel around his waist. He knelt down and he began washing the feet of his disciples. Now, in that culture, let's just really understand where we're coming from here. The foot washing was not a symbolic thing, it was something that was done by the lowest servant in the household. Right? They wore sandals. It was the Middle East. It was dusty. It was dirty. It was, it's arid, desert, dry, and windy, and all of the things, sand, everything. And they typically traveled for miles, sometimes on foot, most of the time, probably. And I mean, this is just where my head goes. Other times on horseback or donkeys or what have you. But their feet were dirty. So when they came into the household, it was the responsibility of the lowest servant in the household to wash the feet because the feet were it was a dirty thing, right? Not a glamorous task. But yet he chose to serve those in the room. He didn't do it to appear humble. He didn't do it to create a leadership lesson. He did it to demonstrate what leadership actually looks like. Leadership that serves the people that they lead. Leadership that models humility. Leadership that understands authority is not about status. It's about responsibility. All right, so here's what happens. Right? He began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Simon Peter said, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus said, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. Right? You do, he continues on. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you wash one another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. And now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Yeah. So I know you just I'm guessing that you might be thinking, and what does this moment from 2000 years ago have anything to do with leadership in the boardroom today? Well, actually quite a bit. The best leaders that I've worked with over the past 30 years, and I can count them on my one hand. The ones people trust, respect, and willingly follow, they have something in common. They don't lead with ego. They lead from service. They remove obstacles for their teams. They develop people. They understand that leadership isn't about being the most important person in the room. It's about helping others succeed. And that mindset changes everything about how a leader shows up. Sometimes servant leadership gets misunderstood. Some people hear the word servant and assume it means passive leadership, soft leadership. I get that with Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. People go, "Oh, so you talk to churches?" No, I talk to corporations. I talk to corporate America. I talk to people who are doing in the grind, doing the everyday. Grace and Salt Leadership isn't about giving people a pass. You're offering them grace. No, it's about making sure that you've given them the message. You're just wrapping it in grace, depending on the other person's frame, right? Their lens, what they're looking through, what's going through at the time. It's empathic leadership, is what it is, and that's a piece. Servant leadership is a piece of grace and salt. You're not avoiding hard decisions at all. Servant leadership is not weak leadership. In fact, I'd argue that it's more about strength than less. Servant leaders still have to make difficult decisions. They still hold high standards, right? They still expect accountability. They just lead from a different posture. Their goal isn't personal recognition. Their goal is building a team and an organization that succeeds. So, when it comes to foot washing, if you haven't done it before, if you have never been part of that um, ceremony, it's not really a ceremony, but that act, do it because it is very emotional. I mean, so years ago when I led students on mission trips, we went through an organization called Youth Works. And every Thursday night, so this was from Sunday to Sunday. And so or Sunday to Friday, I think we left on Friday, either that or Saturday morning. But anyway, um, that Thursday night, they did a foot washing. So what happened was they'd bring the buckets of water and towels, and then they had the youth works leaders wash the church leadership. So that would, the church chaperones. So that was me. And then once they had washed my feet, then I would wash the feet of our students that were from my church. Now, granted, some people, don't touch my feet, right? So we were very careful. If you didn't want your feet washed where you didn't want me to actually touch your feet, I wouldn't. But most of the time, most people, it was fine. And of course, we were very considerate, if you would. and then we would pray over them when we finished. And um, it was so incredibly touching, moving, emotional, um, as two ways. First was as the person washing their feet, it was an honor. Um, but as getting your feet washed and then hearing the prayers over you, poof, as you can tell. I mean, last time I had my feet washed in that type of act, my gosh, it was probably 10 years ago, if not more. Probably more, probably 15 years ago. And it still really stays with me. It's so much so. My daughter was on those trips too, and it was so impactful for her. She also was a leader at YouthWorks after college. Um, but in doing that, that her and her family, her husband, and she's starting this tradition with her children. They during Maundy Thursday, that Thursday night, are washing their feet. So pretty neat. But moments like that, where leadership becomes visible, not through authority, but through service, right? That's because people remember leaders who helped them grow, right? I remember the people who helped me grow. I remember the people who invested in me and who gave me grace when I needed it, right? I remember them. Do you? Do you remember who believed in you? Who was that first person who said, I get you, and I see something in you you might not see? What do you think? I will help you. I will mentor you. I will sponsor you. They remember who made their success possible. I remember who made my success possible. So before we close today, I just want to leave you with three simple leadership checks. So um, I'm just wondering. In my book, I included there's a title. It says, "Are you leading like Jesus?" Right? Not in a religious sense for the workplace, but in the leadership sense of humility, service, and responsibility. And here are some questions that every leader should ask themselves. Okay. So the first one is, are you serving the mission or your ego? Servant leaders, they make decisions based on what moves the mission forward, not what protects their title. No, not what protects their image, but what strengthens the organization. A simple leadership reflection is this: when you make decisions, are you protecting your position or are you serving the mission? Think about that. Okay. First question. Second one, are you developing people? Servant leaders build other leaders. Jesus, look at the 12 disciples. He took fishermen, he took tax collectors, right? He took people who were doing the day to day, in the grind, and he developed that team of 12. He developed leaders. He mentored them. He taught them. He gave them opportunities to grow. That's what strong servant leaders do. They do that because strong organizations are built by multiplying leadership, not controlling it, right? I believe leaderships at all levels. So think about who are the leaders around you. Are you creating more leaders around you or more followers who depend on you? That is a really important question. Are you creating more leaders around you or more followers that depend on you? Okay. You didn't know that this episode was going to be so introspective, did you? And the third question is I want to ask is, do you take responsibility? Servant leaders share credit and they carry responsibility. When things go well, the team gets the recognition. When things go wrong, the leader steps forward and takes responsibility. So now I want to just kind of sidebar on that. Some people think, oh yeah, then there's no accountability for the other people. No, 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 no. There still is accountability. It's okay. Maybe I wasn't as clear as I could have been in my instructions. Let's get clear now. So here are my expectations. And these are the expectations that I'm going to hold you to, and you're going to be held accountable. It's not like if somebody screws up continually and continually and continually, that then you continue to take the blame, right? Oh, more training and more training and more training. No, at some point, they're just not going to get it. So I want to be sure that you understand that piece of it, right? That yeah, when things go right, the team gets the kudos and gets the recognition. But when things go wrong, the leader says, okay, what ownership do I have in this? And then what ownership does the employee have in this? Okay. And that's the conversation that you have. So that last question is, do the people around you feel supported and protected by your leadership? When leaders operate that way, the trust grows. And I used to say, I had a customer that I worked with that I couldn't, I wasn't a, I guess he was a customer. But I didn't trust him. Like the trust level between the two of us was like super. I can move mountains fast if I'm working with people I trust. But if I'm working with people that I don't trust, oh my gosh, it's like uh, uh, slow as molasses. Every email, every telephone call, I have to be so careful with my wording, etc. Right? So think about that. Do the people around you feel supported and protected by your leadership? Okay. All right. So Easter, it's a great time for leaders to reflect on something deeper, not just how we lead, but why we lead. Is leadership about recognition? Is it about status? Is it about control? Or is leadership about serving the mission and supporting the people we lead? Because the most respected leaders are rarely the ones who stand above the team, right? They're the ones who stand with the team, helping others succeed, encouraging growth, building organizations where people can do their best work. That's the example of the original servant leader. I'm just going to close with this. In my book, Grace and Salt, I reference this gentleman who wrote a book on servant leadership back in the 1990s. And so he had two questions. So his name is Robert Greenleaf. Okay. And he had two questions that he would ask. This was like his best, is what he called it. That was to evaluate Jesus's leadership or to evaluate servant leadership style. He would say, did those Jesus served grow as persons? Right. So he's talking about Jesus and the disciples. So my question to you is, did those you serve grow as people? Right? Did they grow as people? And two, did insert leader's name become, or did the employee become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, and more likely themselves to become servants under your leadership? Okay, so just look up Robert Greenleaf and best test. That's the name of it. And it's those two questions. And you can kind of get a feel for how you're doing with servant leadership. It's pretty simple, but yet very impactful. So if today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to do a few things. I want you to subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode if you haven't already. And then I want you to share this episode with a leader who believes leadership is about more than authority, right? That it is about serving others, or that maybe this is something that is going to fit with their leadership style. If something today stood out to you, resonated, please send me a message. I really appreciate hearing how these conversations show up in your leadership and how I can maybe dig into a topic a little bit more or a different topic, whatever you want to see, so that that this podcast can be of value to you. I'm not just doing this just so that I can be on the air. I want to do this so that I am giving back to others. Leadership done well is never about the leader alone. It's about the people we serve. All right. Until next time. And if you want to, if you want to know more about my services, please visit graceandsaltleadership.com. Or you can also go through past episodes of my Top Floor podcast found right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much and keep leading with Grace and Salt.
Thanks so much for hanging out on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a little boost, share it with your friends to keep the momentum going. And hey, if you're ready to rise, find your voice, and lead with clarity and confidence, we'd love to connect with you. Reach out at graceandsaltleadership.com to learn how Grace and Salt can support your growth. Remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else, just lead like you. All right, I'll see you next time on the top floor.